The strange encounter, the road was silent, stretching into the endless desert of a colony world. The human, a traveler named Daniel, drove his old transport vehicle across the dusty path. He was used to long journeys, and silence never bothered him, but on this night, something felt different. The air carried a strange tension, and the sky above glowed faintly with distant stars and the shadows of passing ships. Daniel slowed his vehicle when he saw a figure standing by the side of the road. At first, he thought it was just a traveler waiting for a ride. But as he came closer, his breath caught. It was not a human. The figure was tall, slim, and wrapped in a dark cloak that fluttered in the wind. Two glowing eyes stared at him, bright and unblinking, under the hood. He could see faint patterns glowing across her skin, like living tattoos moving under the surface. The alien girl stood silently, not moving as the vehicle stopped. Her face was half hidden, but Daniel could feel her eyes fixed on him. For a moment, he thought about leaving. This world had rules, and humans were warned not to get involved with alien travelers. But something about her presence pulled him in. She looked fragile, yet there was power in the way she stood, like she was both lost and dangerous at the same time. Daniel opened the door and leaned out. "Do you need a ride?" he asked carefully. The alien girl tilted her head, her glowing eyes narrowing as if studying him. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, with a slow nod, she stepped forward and entered the vehicle. Her movements were graceful but cautious. She sat quietly, folding her cloak around herself. Daniel started the engine again, the hum of the machine filling the silence. He glanced at her, unsure of what to say. Usually, when he picked up strangers, they at least gave their name, but she sat still, staring out the window as if searching for something far away. Minutes passed, and the silence grew heavier. Daniel felt the weight of her presence pressing against him. Finally, he asked, "Where are you headed?" The alien girl turned her glowing eyes toward him. Her voice, when she spoke, was soft and strange, carrying an echo as if more than one tone existed inside her words. "Far from here," she whispered. That answer only made Daniel more curious. He wanted to ask who she was, what she was running from, but something in her voice told him not to press too hard, so he kept driving, the desert stretching endlessly around them. As the vehicle moved deeper into the night, Daniel noticed the girl kept glancing at the sky. Her fingers tightened around her cloak, and her glowing marks pulsed faster. Then he saw why, above them, distant ships moved across the stars, shining beams of white light down toward the surface. They were searching for something, or someone. The alien girl lowered her head and whispered quickly, "Do not stop, no matter what you see." Her words sent a chill down Daniel's spine. He gripped the controls tighter, suddenly realizing the risk he had just taken. Whoever she was not just a lost traveler. She was being hunted. Beams of light swept across the desert, forcing Daniel to steer into darker paths. Dust rose behind them, the vehicle bouncing over rocks and sand. The alien girl closed her eyes, her hands glowing brighter as if she was gathering energy. Daniel felt the air around them shift, a faint shimmer forming like a veil. When the searchlights passed over, they seemed to bend away, missing the vehicle entirely. He looked at her in shock. "What did you just do?" he asked, his voice trembling. But she only opened her glowing eyes and whispered, "Safety for now." Daniel's heart pounded. He had only wanted to help someone in need. Now he was caught in something far bigger, something dangerous. The alien girl turned to him, her gaze piercing. "You should not have stopped," she said quietly. "But you did." Her words were not angry, but heavy with meaning. Daniel didn't know if she was thanking him or warning him. All he knew was that this simple ride was no longer simple. The night felt darker, the silence sharper, and the girl sitting beside him was no ordinary stranger. She was a mystery, one that could change his life forever. The vehicle rolled on into the night, carrying both of them toward a fate Daniel could not yet imagine. The silent journey. The vehicle rolled across the dark desert, its engine humming softly inside. Silence filled the space between Daniel and the alien girl. The only sound was the rush of sand beneath the wheels and the faint crackle of the engines. Old circuits. Daniel kept his eyes on the path ahead, but he could feel her gaze on him. Sharp and watchful, the alien girl's hands were hidden beneath her cloak, but faint light leaked through the fabric. Her markings pulsed like a heartbeat. Slow, then faster, then slow again. Daniel wanted to ask her about it, but something inside told him not to break the silence too soon. There was weight in the air, as if the desert itself was holding its breath. After several minutes, he risked a glance at her. She was staring out the window, her glowing eyes fixed on the empty horizon. Her face looked calm, but her body was tense, like a predator ready to spring. Daniel cleared his throat, his voice quiet. "You never told me your name." The alien girl turned slowly, her gaze landing on him. Her eyes glowed brighter in the dim cabin. For a moment, she said nothing. Then she whispered, "Liara." Her voice carried the same strange echo as before, soft but layered. Daniel nodded, gripping the wheel tighter. "I'm Daniel," he said, almost as if to balance the silence. Liara blinked once, then looked away again. The sound of her name hung in the air like a secret. Daniel wanted to ask her why those ships were searching for her, why she was alone in the middle of nowhere. But before he could speak, Liara suddenly leaned forward. Her eyes fixed on the sky. Through the windshield, Daniel saw them. 3 dark ships hovering above the desert, their searchlights sweeping the ground. Liara's cloak shifted as her body stiffened. "They are closer," she whispered. Her markings pulsed faster, flooding the cabin with faint blue light. Daniel pressed the accelerator, the vehicle rattling as it sped over uneven ground. The ships descended lower, their engines roaring like thunder in the night. Liara lowered her head, almost as if hiding. Her voice came out like a hiss, sharp and urgent. "Do not slow down, do not stop, no matter what happens." Daniel felt sweat bead on his forehead. He had never been chased before, and he had no idea why he was risking his life for someone he had just met. But the fear in her voice made it clear, whatever was hunting her was dangerous, and if they caught her, they would not hesitate to destroy him too. The vehicle swerved sharply as Daniel steered into an old canyon path. The ground shook beneath the wheels, rocks tumbling from the sides. Above, the ships hovered, beams of light piercing the night like spears. One of the beams passed close, brushing across the canyon floor. Daniel gasped, but to his shock, the light bent, almost curving away from them. Liara's hands glowed under her cloak, her voice murmuring in a strange tongue. Daniel realized she was shielding them somehow. Her power was invisible, yet strong, enough to twist the eyes of their pursuers. When the danger passed, Daniel risked a glance at her. Her face was pale, her breathing heavy. Whatever she had done had cost her strength. "Why are they after you?" he asked, his voice low. Liara met his gaze, and for the first time, her eyes softened. "Because I escaped," she said simply. Daniel frowned. "Escaped from what?" Liara turned away, her cloak wrapping tighter around her body. "From them," she whispered, her voice trembling. "They want to use me, to chain me, to take what is inside me." Daniel felt a shiver crawl down his spine. He didn't understand her words completely, but he understood the fear in her tone. Whatever was inside her, whatever made her glow, it was powerful enough for ships to cross the desert just to find her, and he was now part of it, whether he wanted to be or not. Silence returned as the vehicle moved deeper into the canyon. The walls closed in, hiding them from the sky. Liara leaned back in her seat, her eyes closing for a moment. Her voice was faint, almost like a sigh. "You did not have to stop for me." Daniel looked at her, his jaw tightening. "No one should be left alone in the dark," he said firmly. Liara opened her eyes, staring at him with surprise. Her glowing marks slowed, their light dimming into a calm rhythm. For the first time, she smiled faintly. A smile that carried both sorrow and gratitude. The journey continued. But Daniel knew nothing about this night was ordinary anymore. A simple ride had become a dangerous mission, and sitting beside him was not just an alien girl, but someone who carried secrets powerful enough to change everything. The silence between them no longer felt empty. It felt alive, heavy with unspoken words and unseen danger. And Daniel realized that the real journey had only just begun. The hidden truth: the canyon stretched long and narrow, its walls glowing faintly under the light of the stars. Daniel kept the vehicle steady, but his thoughts were far from calm. Liara sat quietly beside him, her glowing eyes fixed on the darkness. Ahead, her silence was no longer empty. It carried weight, secrets pressing against the air. Daniel knew he had stepped into something far beyond his world, but a voice deep inside told him to listen, to understand. The girl beside him was no ordinary traveler. She was running from something powerful, and he was now part of her escape. Finally, Daniel broke the silence. "You said you escaped," he whispered. His voice was low, careful, as if afraid his words would shatter the fragile peace. "Escape from what? From who?" Liara turned slowly, her eyes glowing like twin stars in the dim cabin. Her cloak shifted as she leaned closer. For the first time, she looked directly into his eyes without hesitation. "From the Dominion," she said, her voice trembling. Daniel felt the word echo through him, sharp and unfamiliar. He had heard whispers of the Dominion before, rumors of a vast alien empire that controlled entire sectors of space, cold, merciless, and unstoppable. Liara's hands slipped out of her cloak, revealing the glowing markings across her skin. They pulsed like rivers of light, flowing up her arms. Daniel stared, unable to hide his shock. "What are you?" he asked softly. Liara's gaze did not waver. "I was born with this," she said, her voice carrying sorrow and strength at the same time. "My people believe it is a gift, but the Dominion, they call it a weapon." She looked away, her voice breaking slightly. "They wanted to keep me locked away, to use me as a tool, to burn worlds with my power." Daniel's grip on the steering controls tightened. He tried to imagine what kind of life that must have been. Living as a prisoner, hunted for the light inside her. His chest tightened with anger, not at her, but at the thought of anyone treating her that way. Liara continued, her voice softer now. "I ran because I wanted to be free." Her glowing hands trembled as she clasped them together. "I do not want to destroy. I do not want to fight. I only wanted to walk under the stars without chains." Daniel glanced at her, his jaw set. He had picked her up as a stranger. But with every word she spoke, she became more human to him. Not because of her looks, not because of her glowing marks, but because of her fear, her hope, her need for freedom. He understood that, more than she could imagine. Silence lingered for a moment, broken only by the hum of the vehicle. Then Daniel spoke firmly, his voice steady. "They're not going to take you back." Liara's eyes widened, her glowing marks pulsing brighter as if reacting to his words. "You would fight them?" she whispered, disbelief in her tone. Daniel gave a short nod. "I don't know how. I don't know what I can do, but I won't hand you over, not to them." For the first time, Lyra's expression changed completely. Her eyes softened and her lips parted as if she could not believe his words. "Why?" she asked, her voice breaking. Daniel looked ahead, his hands gripping the wheel tighter. "Because no one deserves to live in chains," he said simply. Liara's eyes shimmered with a light that was not just her markings. For the first time since she entered his vehicle, she looked less like a fugitive and more like a living soul who had found a flicker of hope. But the moment of calm did not last. From behind them, a faint rumble echoed through the canyon. Daniel's stomach dropped as he saw distant lights approaching. The Dominion ships were closing in, faster than before. Lyra's face turned pale, her markings glowing wildly. "They will not stop," she whispered, her voice heavy with fear. "They will follow until they have me." Daniel's heart pounded. He knew the truth now, and it terrified him. This was no longer about offering a ride. This was about survival, freedom, and standing against a force much greater than himself. Liara leaned closer, her voice urgent. "If you keep me with you, they will hunt you too." Her glowing hands trembled as she reached for him. "You should leave me here. You should save yourself." Daniel's jaw tightened, his eyes sharp. "I already made my choice," he said firmly. Liara froze, her glowing fingers hovering near his arm. She stared at him as if she had never heard such words before, as if no one had ever chosen her. Over their own safety, the canyon shook as the ships grew closer. Beams of light sweeping across the rock walls. Daniel pressed the accelerator, pushing the vehicle to its limits. Liara closed her eyes, her glowing hands rising slowly. The air around them shimmered, bending, warping. Daniel felt the pressure of her power as it filled the cabin. It was terrifying, but also awe-inspiring. She opened her eyes, staring at him. With fierce determination, "If you will not abandon me," she said, her voice strong now, "that I will not let them touch you." The chase had begun again. But this time, the silence between them was gone. In its place was a bond forged. Not by chance, but by choice. Daniel had learned the truth, and Liara had found someone willing to stand beside her. The night was no longer just a journey, it was the beginning of a war neither of them had asked for, but both would now have to face together. The chase begins. The night shook with the roar of engines. Daniel's vehicle rattled as he pushed it faster, deeper into the twisting canyon. Behind them, the Dominion ships descended, their black hulls glinting under the starlight. Beams of white light cut across the walls, slicing through stone as if searching for prey. Daniel's hands tightened on the controls, his knuckles white. He had driven through storms, through crumbling paths, even through pirate territory once, but nothing had ever felt like this. This was not just danger, this was doom chasing them. Down Liara sat beside him, her cloak falling back as her glowing hands pressed against the dashboard. Her markings pulsed faster, brighter, wrapping her in an aura of light. The cabin filled with a low hum, strange and powerful. Daniel felt his chest tighten as if the air itself was vibrating. "Hold steady," she whispered, her voice layered and echoing. Daniel gritted his teeth. "I'm holding as best as I can." The vehicle skidded around a sharp corner, rocks breaking loose and tumbling into the abyss below. One wrong turn and they would plunge into darkness. But there was no choice. The Dominion was right behind them. A blast ripped through the canyon, striking the wall near their vehicle. Stone exploded in a shower of sparks and dust. Daniel coughed, his eyes burning. "They're firing now," he shouted. Liara closed her glowing eyes, her voice rising in a strange chant. The next beam bent as it neared them, twisting away into the canyon wall. The explosion shook the ground, but it missed them. Daniel stole a glance at her, his heart pounding. "You're doing that?" Her eyes snapped open, glowing fiercely. "Yes, but I cannot keep it forever." The ships roared closer, their engines screaming like beasts in the night. Daniel slammed the accelerator, the vehicle vibrating under the strain. His mind raced. How long before the machine broke apart? How long before they were cornered? Liara leaned closer, her voice sharp and urgent. "There is a passage ahead, narrow but hidden." Daniel's eyes darted to the map display. "I don't see it," he said. Lyra's glowing fingers touched the screen, light flowing into it. Suddenly, a faint path appeared on the display, a crack in the canyon, invisible to the naked eye. "Turn there," she whispered. Daniel swerved hard, the vehicle nearly tipping as it shot into the narrow passage. The walls pressed close on both sides, scraping the sides of the transport. Behind them, one of the Dominion ships tried to follow, but its massive frame struck the rock walls. The sound of tearing metal echoed through the canyon as the ship exploded in a wave of fire. The blast lit up the night, but Daniel had no time to look. He kept pushing forward, deeper into the passage. Liara's breathing was heavy now, sweat glistening on her brow despite the glowing calm of her markings. She had used too much energy shielding them already. Her hands trembled, her voice weak. "They will send more," Daniel nodded grimly. "Then we keep running." For a moment, silence returned, broken only by the sound of the vehicle grinding against stone as it squeezed through the narrow gap. But the silence did not last. The canyon widened again, opening into a flat stretch of desert. Above, 2 more Dominion ships appeared, their spotlights sweeping across the sands. Daniel cursed under his breath. They're relentless. Liara placed a hand on his arm, her touch warm and strange. They cannot stop. Not until I am theirs, or I am gone. Daniel looked at her, his jaw set. Then we'll make sure it's neither, he said. Her glowing eyes widened, as if surprised by his determination. In that moment, something passed between them. Trust. Fragile but real, she whispered. You are not like others. Before Daniel could answer, the sky lit up with another barrage of fire. Explosions ripped through the desert floor, sand spraying like waves. Daniel swerved hard, the vehicle bouncing violently, nearly throwing them from their seats. He fought the controls, his arms aching. The Dominion wanted to crush them, and they were closing in fast. Liara lifted her hands again, but this time the glow was unstable, flickering like a dying flame. She cried out softly, her body trembling. Daniel reached across, steadying her. Save your strength, he said firmly. I'll get us through this. Another blast struck behind them, the shockwave slamming into the vehicle. Metal screamed as panels shook loose, sparks dancing across the controls. Daniel's heart raced, but his eyes stayed sharp. He guided the transport through the chaos, weaving between fire and sand. Above, the Dominion ships circled like vultures, but Daniel refused to slow, refused to give them what they wanted. Liara opened her glowing eyes again, staring at him. You should have left me, she whispered. Her voice carried sorrow and disbelief. Daniel didn't look at her. His eyes locked on the deadly sky ahead. I told you already, he said, his voice like steel. I made my choice. Her eyes shimmered with something more than light this time, something human, something she had not felt in years. Hope. For the first time, she believed he meant it, and for the first time, she was not running alone. The desert roared with fire and engines. The chase had truly begun. But Daniel and Liara were no longer just prey. Together, they were something more. And the Dominion would soon learn that even the smallest spark could burn the mightiest empire. Asterisk. The bond grows. The desert was silent again. The roar of the Dominion ships had faded into the distance, their shadows swallowed by the endless horizon. Daniel slowed the vehicle at last, his hands shaking as he pulled it to a stop behind a ridge of stone. Dust settled around them, curling in the pale moonlight. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Daniel leaned back in his seat, his chest rising and falling, his heartbeat still thundering in his ears. He had never been so close to death, never driven so recklessly, never fought so hard to stay alive. And yet, sitting beside him was the reason he had done it all. The alien girl who had turned his simple journey into a war. Liara sat quietly, her cloak wrapped tight, her glowing marks dimmed to a faint flicker. She looked weaker now, her breaths short and uneven. Daniel turned his head toward her, his voice low. You're hurt. Liara shook her head slowly, her glowing eyes half closed. Not hurt. Only tired, she whispered, her voice soft and fragile. Daniel hesitated, then reached for a small water flask from the console. He held it out to her. Here, drink. Lyra's glowing eyes studied him for a moment, as if unsure if she could accept. Then she took it gently, her slender fingers brushing against his hand. The touch sent a strange shiver through him, warm and electric. She lifted the flask to her lips, sipping slowly, almost carefully. When she handed it back, her voice was faint. You risked your life for me. Daniel frowned, his tone steady. I told you already, no one deserves chains. Liara lowered her gaze, her markings glowing faintly. No one has ever said that to me, she whispered. Her words struck him deeper than any blast. Daniel had no answer, only silence. The night stretched on, the stars burning bright above them. Daniel leaned against the seat, exhaustion pulling at his body. but his mind refused to rest. He thought about the Dominion ships, about the way Lyra had bent light itself, about the power she carried within her. She was dangerous, yes, but not because she wanted to be. Danger followed her because others wanted to use her. He could see it now. The weight she carried was more than any one person should bear. Lyra broke the silence, her voice soft but clear. When you first stopped, I thought you were like the others. Daniel glanced at her, confused. The others? Lyra nodded slowly, her glowing eyes distant. Those who see me only as a prize, a tool, a weapon. They offer help, but they want something in return, always. Her voice trembled, but she continued. But you asked for nothing. You gave without expecting. Daniel shifted uncomfortably. He had never thought of himself as special, never imagined his simple act of kindness could mean so much. I just couldn't leave you there, he said quietly. Lyra turned her glowing eyes toward him, her expression unreadable. Her voice was barely more than a whisper. And that is why you are different. For a moment, they sat in silence again, but this silence was different. It was no longer heavy with fear. It was gentle, fragile, like something new had been born between them. Daniel didn't know what to call it, trust. Maybe even something more, but he knew it was real. A faint breeze moved through the desert, carrying with it the scent of dust and dry stone. Lyra leaned back, closing her eyes, her markings glowing in a slow, steady rhythm. Daniel watched her. And for the first time, he saw not a fugitive, not a stranger, not even an alien. He saw someone who had been alone for too long, someone who only wanted freedom, and he realized he would fight to give her that, no matter the cost. After some time, Lyra spoke again, her voice soft, almost hesitant. Daniel, she said, using his name for the first time. His chest tightened at the sound, simple yet powerful. Yes? He replied. Lyra opened her glowing eyes, meeting his gaze. Thank you, she whispered. Her gratitude was not loud, not dramatic, but it carried a weight that left him speechless. It was not just thanks for the water or for the ride. It was thanks for something far greater, for choosing to stand by her when no one else ever had. Daniel looked away, his throat tight. He did not know what to say, so he said nothing, but inside something stirred. Something he had not felt in years, a sense of purpose, a reason to keep fighting. And it was sitting right beside him, glowing softly in the night. The quiet moment did not last. In the distance, faint lights flickered across the horizon. The minion was still searching, still hunting. Lyra saw them too, her smile fading. They will never stop, she said softly. Daniel gripped the wheel again, determination hardening his eyes. Then neither will we, he replied. The bond between them had grown, unspoken yet unbreakable. What began as a simple ride was now a shared destiny. And though the night was far from over, Daniel knew one thing with certainty. He was no longer running just to save her. He was running because he could not imagine leaving her behind. The final stand. The desert stretched endlessly before them, but Daniel knew they had run out of places to hide. The Dominion ships moved like shadows across the sky, circling, waiting. Every direction seemed trapped. Every escape closed. Daniel's vehicle rattled and groaned, its old engine pushing harder than it was ever meant to. Lyra sat upright now, her glowing eyes sharp, her cloak falling away to reveal her markings blazing brighter than ever. She was weak, exhausted, but determination burned inside her. Daniel glanced at her, his voice low but steady. They're closing in, Lyra nodded, her voice trembling but strong. Yes. And soon we will have no choice. The first blast struck the sand just ahead, exploding in a wave of fire and dust. The vehicle skidded, smoke filling the air. Daniel swerved sharply, but the second blast came closer, throwing sparks against their hull. The Dominion wanted them alive, but not unharmed. They wanted to break them first. Lyra's hands trembled as she lifted them, glowing streams of light spiraling up her arms. The cabin shook with invisible pressure, the glass vibrating. Daniel felt his chest tighten as if the air was alive. "Stop the vehicle," she whispered suddenly. Daniel stared at her in disbelief. "Stop? Are you insane?" "They'll kill us." Liara's glowing eyes locked onto his, fierce and unyielding. "No. If we run, we are prey. If we stand, we are more." The words froze him. Something inside told him she was right. Running had kept them alive this long. But now the Dominion had closed every path. There was no escape left, only a choice, to surrender or to fight. And Daniel knew surrender was never an option. With a sharp breath, he slammed the brakes. The vehicle screeched to a halt, sand flying around them. The night went silent except for the echo of Dominion engines overhead. The ships hovered above, beams of light sweeping across the ground until they fell upon the two figures standing in the desert. Daniel stepped out first, his boots crunching against the sand. His heart raced, but his jaw was set. Liara followed, her glowing markings lighting the darkness like fire. She stood beside him, fragile yet powerful. The sight of her against the desert night made Daniel's chest tighten. She looked like something out of a dream or a prophecy. The Dominion ships descended lower, their engines growling. From one of them, a deep voice boomed, mechanical and cold. "Surrender the girl, human, and you may yet live." Daniel's fists clenched, his voice rising against the echoing command. "She's not yours." The desert carried his words into the night. Liara raised her hands, her glow brightening until it filled the air around them. The Dominion ships shifted uneasily, beams of energy charging in their weapons. Daniel could feel the heat rising, the danger pressing closer. But he stood his ground, refusing to move. The first blast shot toward them, a spear of fire tearing through the air. Daniel braced, but Lyra's hand swept upward, and the blast curved away, slamming into the sand. Behind them, the ground shook violently, waves of dust rising. Her body trembled. But she stood firm, her glowing eyes blazing like suns. More fire rained down, but Liara bent it, twisted it, sent it crashing into the canyon walls. Every strike shook the desert. Every wave of power left her weaker. Daniel stepped forward, his voice sharp. "Enough hiding, Liara, give them everything." Her gaze snapped to him, fear and fire mixing in her eyes. "If I do, I cannot stop it," she whispered. Daniel's chest tightened, but he stepped closer. "Then let it out. I'm with you, no matter what happens." For a moment, time seemed to freeze. The Dominion ships hovered above, weapons charged. Liara stood trembling, power burning inside her like a storm. And Daniel's words anchored her, steady and true. She closed her eyes, raised her arms high, and released. The desert exploded with light. It poured from her markings, from her eyes, from every breath she took. A wave of energy rippled outward, bending the air, tearing across the sky. The first Dominion ship shuddered, its engines twisting as the wave struck. Sparks burst across its hull before it spiraled down, crashing into the sands in a burst of fire. The second ship fired desperately, but its blasts bent away, curving harmlessly into the ground. Lyra's glow flared brighter, her voice crying out in a language Daniel could not understand. The third ship tried to retreat, but the storm of energy dragged it down, flames engulfing its wings until it fell, breaking apart against the canyon wall. Silence followed, broken only by the crackle of fire in the distance. Daniel stood frozen, staring at her. Liara dropped to her knees, her glow fading quickly, her breath sharp and shallow. Daniel rushed to her side, catching her before she fell. Her glowing eyes dimmed, but her voice was soft. "I told you. I could not stop it." Daniel held her tightly, his heart pounding. "You saved us," he said firmly. Lyra's lips trembled into the faintest smile. "No, we saved each other," she whispered. The desert lay in ruins, Dominion wreckage burning against the horizon, but Daniel knew this was not the end. It was only the beginning. The Dominion would return, stronger and more furious. Yet as he held Liara close, he realized something unshakable. They were no longer just running, no longer just prey. They had stood and fought, together, and whatever came next They would face it side by side. Asterisk the gratitude that stunned him. The desert was quiet at last. The fires of the fallen Dominion ships flickered in the distance, their smoke curling into the star-filled sky. Daniel sat in the sand, his arm around Liara as she leaned weakly against him. Her glow had faded to a soft shimmer, faint and fragile, like the last light of a dying star. For the first time since their journey began, there was no sound of engines, no rumble of weapons, no shadows chasing them. Only silence, heavy and endless. Daniel's body ached, his lungs burned, but his mind was clear. They had survived, against all odds. But survival had come at a cost. Lyra's power had saved them, yet it had nearly broken her. Daniel looked down at her, his voice low. "Stay with me. Don't close your eyes." Lyra's glowing gaze lifted slowly, meeting his. Her lips curved into the faintest smile. "You fear I will fade," she whispered. Daniel swallowed hard, his jaw tight. "I won't let you," he said firmly. Liara's hand trembled as she reached up, her glowing fingers brushing against his chest. "You already have," she whispered softly. Her touch was warm, strange, alive. Daniel felt a pulse of energy flow from her into him, not painful, but gentle. Like a heartbeat shared. His chest tightened as strength filled him, not just in his body but in his spirit. It was as if she was giving him part of herself, something beyond power, something deeper. "What are you doing?" he asked, his voice shaking. Lyra's glowing eyes softened. "My people call it the gift of memory," she said quietly. "It is given only once, to the one we trust most." Daniel's breath caught. "I don't understand." Lyra leaned closer, her forehead almost against his. Her voice barely more than a whisper. "You carried me when I was hunted. You stood when I told you to run. You gave me freedom when I had none." Her eyes glistened with light, her voice breaking. "I have no treasures, no home, no people left to thank you. So I give you this, my memory, my bond, my gratitude." Before Daniel could speak, her glow spread brighter. Images rushed into his mind, Lyra's world before the Dominion, her people dancing under skies of crystal light, her laughter as a child, her sorrow as she was taken, the chains, the endless darkness, the escape, the fear, the hope, all of it poured into him, not as words, but as feelings. He saw her entire life in flashes, felt her joy, her pain, her loneliness, her desperate wish to be free. And in the center of it all, he felt her trust in him, pure and unshakable. Daniel gasped, his eyes wide. I can feel it." Lyra's hand pressed against his chest, her voice trembling but strong. "Now you will never forget me, no matter what happens." Daniel stared at her, speechless. He had expected gratitude, maybe a word, maybe a smile. But this gift was something no human could have imagined. She had given him her entire story, her very soul. It was a weight, but not a burden. It was a bond. Liara leaned back slightly, her glow dimming again. Tears glistened in her glowing eyes. "You should not have risked so much for me, Daniel, and yet you did, so I give you all that I am." Daniel's throat tightened, his voice unsteady. "I didn't save you for a reward." Lyra's faint smile returned, gentle and sad. "And that is why you deserve one." The desert wind swept around them, carrying the scent of smoke and ash. The night felt endless, but inside Daniel something new stirred. He was no longer just a man who offered a stranger a ride. He was part of something greater now, tied to a soul from another world. As the first light of dawn touched the horizon, Lyra shifted closer, resting her head against his shoulder. Her voice was faint, almost fading. "Whatever comes next, you will not face it alone." Daniel's arm tightened around her, his voice steady. "Neither will you." They sat together in silence, two souls bound not by blood, not by duty, but by choice. The Dominion would return. The fight was far from over, but Daniel knew, as he gazed at the glowing girl beside him, that no empire, no army, no power in the stars could erase what had just been forged. Her gratitude had not been words, not even light. It was something far deeper, a bond that would last beyond time itself. And as Daniel held her in the dawn, his heart heavy yet unshakably strong, he realized the truth. He had given her a ride, but she had given him everything. Her gratitude had left him speechless, and it always would.